Hey, how's it going, YouTube? The day has come where I decide which one of these I return to Best Buy. So, just to really kind of start this comparison off, I would like you guys to know that I got this Razer Blade 15 2020 base model with the RTX 2060 for $1,350. That is $450 off the MSRP of $17.99 at Best Buy. The G14 with the AMD 4900 and RTX 2060 Max Q I got for $11.99 at Best Buy, which is ultimately, I believe, $250 off the base price of $14.50 or $14.99, something along those lines. I would like to make a decision on these if the price wasn't a factor or didn't exist, but obviously if you are watching this video, chances are you are going to go out and try and purchase one of these, or you just like to watch laptop videos in your free time, because yeah, I definitely fall in that category. Without further ado, I'm going to dive right in. This is not really going to be a comparison of benchmarks and this and that, but it's going to be, as a consumer, what I've learned from using both of these machines. I'm going to try and give you guys all of my first-hand thoughts. Obviously, I was not sent these, so I'm not getting paid or endorsed or anything or sponsored to review these in any kind of certain way. So hopefully you guys can take my word at face value, and let's dive right in. First, I would like to go over the biggest kind of difference between these two laptops, and that's going to be the actual build of both of them. Now, when you go for the base model of the Razer Blade, this is what you're getting. Whatever specs you get on the inside, you're going to get this black chunk of nice, cool looking aluminum with a very just weirdly aggressive light up snake logo that I have come to actually really enjoy. I do want to maybe get a D brand for this just because of the fingerprints, but overall this laptop is built very nicely. I really love the keyboard. I love just how grid-like it is. I love the giant trackpad. I love the 144 Hz 15.6 inch display. The speakers, meh, they're okay to get done what you need to get done, but certainly really good for all your on-the-go needs. As far as I/O goes, we have ourselves a charging port. We have an Ethernet port, USB Type A, USB Type C. This one is not Thunderbolt 3, that's on the other side. Your headphone microphone jack. Over here we have a Kensington lock, HDMI, 2 USB Type A's, and this it will be your USB-C that supports Thunderbolt 3. So if you guys didn't already know, this bad boy has an Intel chip in it. Now, it does severely lag behind the AMD chip that is in here, but one thing that it has that the AMD chip does not have is support for Thunderbolt 3 technology. And this is important. At least it's important to me. I do maybe want to build a desktop PC one day, but the dream of just getting just a lot of storage, you know, because this has 2 slots for SSDs and 2 slots for RAM that you can upgrade with. This does not. Putting maybe like a 2 terabyte SSD in that, putting another 16 gigabyte of RAM in that for 32 gigabytes of RAM and 2.5 terabytes of storage. Having all my games on here, RTX 2060 ready on the go. Coming back home, hooking up to my 165 hertz monitor, having like a 3060 or 3070 and a Razer eGPU enclosure, and just being able to have desktop power with this. And not only that, but being able to upgrade that GPU whenever I feel like it. It just seems like the dream. Hopefully one day that will be a more popular avenue of approach to take. But I will say that is a very, very big thing that this laptop has that this one just simply cannot compete with. I've gone over the Razer's build enough. Let me set that aside for just a moment. The G14. Something about this beautiful white slab of aluminum is just, it has grown on me a lot. If you're lucky enough or have the dough to find and purchase one with the anime matrix and maybe even shadow gray on the back, those things look awesome. You can play memes off of this thing. Very, very subtle, classy branding on the bottom, which is very surprising for a gaming laptop. The only real gaming-ish like build aspect of this are the vents that are right here. I'm not too much of a fan of that, and what I really don't like about that actually is, so it is very neat that when you lift this up, as you can see, the actual design makes the laptop lift up when you open the screen, and that promotes airflow. However, when you open it up, that exhaust system just blows all the heat up at your display. Now this laptop is only like 6-7 months old. We don't really know the longevity of the displays in these machines, but I could only imagine what that would do if you plan to keep this laptop for a few years. Now another thing that kind of has me a little bit bewildered about this machine is I personally like to get my laptop when I come home, put it on a laptop stand and dock it in a clamshell mode, and this thing looks so awesome when it's in a clamshell mode. But if you go on the subreddit for the G14, which is a great place to go, by the way, if you would like to learn really anything about this machine, everything is on there. So if you leave it in clamshell mode like this, it automatically throttles the CPU, so there is no threat of like heat degradation to the system. If you would like to dock it, you have to keep it open if you want the full power from this machine, and this machine is very, very powerful. Now let's go over the I/O. For I/O, what we have here is the power input, HDMI. Here you have a USB Type-C, no Thunderbolt 3 anywhere on this laptop, but this does support DisplayPort 1.4, mic and audio jack. On this side, another Kensington lock. You know, this really just kind of grinds my gears. I understand these are here so people probably don't steal the displays in store, but could you imagine just like a little USB-C or even a USB Type-A just thrown in right there? That would be so neat. But to keep going, 2 USB Type-A's and another USB Type-C that does not support Thunderbolt 3. So right away, these two laptops have the same I/O. However, what the G14 does not have that the Razer Blade does have is that Ethernet port, and it is also missing that one USB Type-A port. So something to keep in mind if you're trying to plug all your peripherals in, or if I/O is something that is very important to you. I also like to play online games such as Street Fighter, hardwire connected in, and it's nice to be able to do that straight into the laptop instead of having to use a dongle or rely on your Wi-Fi connectivity. So it is important to say that the base model of the Razer Blade does not support Windows Hello, so every time you open it up, you have to use a passcode, whereas the G14 has a fingerprint sensor. So if that's something that is important to you, just know that biometrics are lacking on this, and the fingerprint sensor for this bad boy is actually built into the power button. Now, I showed you the Razer Blade keyboard earlier. I really love the RGB and the grid-like aesthetic. The G14 chose to go with a more of a gamer type aesthetic. I'm not a huge fan of the font, and this little spacebar paddle is awesome when you're gaming, having more of an area to hit with your thumb to jump or do whatever. But I just looking at it, seeing that like big thumb is not symmetrical. I don't know, it just doesn't jive with me too well. But I really do enjoy all of the function keys. The keys up here for volume, muting your mic, and to access Armory Crate. Overall, a very good keyboard, but the G14 does not have RGB. The Razer Blade has RGB for the whole panel in one color at the same time. It does not have key by key RGB that is reserved for the advanced model. And this machine only lights up in white, and that is not very visible, and it bleeds through quite a bit, so I suggest you just keep that off. It's really just a lot easier to see with the backlighting off. If you are going to be using either of these laptops, I will say if you're using them for gaming and you're using them just on the machines themselves, either of them are going to handle any game you throw at them very well. I know new games such as Cyberpunk will get like 50, 40 FPS on this bad boy if you get the 2060 model, because DLSS is very important from what I hear. Personally, I don't want to buy Cyberpunk until I'm confident all the bugs are worked out, or I don't know, that game is just a hot mess right now, so I'm personally gonna hold off. But if you are curious, this thing can handle it, and so can this. What has really just confused the heck out of me ever since I bought these laptops though was the Nvidia Geforce RTX branding. What I mean by this is, if you don't really know anything about these two laptops, immediately you'd say, oh, both of them have 2060s. They're both going to perform exactly the same. At least, you know, that's initially what I thought. If this one has, you know, some thermal constraints, you know, I could accept that because it is such a smaller package than this. But what I didn't know is that this, at the time, I didn't know, had the RTX 2060 Max Q. And what that means is it is a very underclocked version of the 2060 that will only use 65 watts of power. And the reason why it only uses 65 watts of power is simply because of the small chassis of this machine. At a 14-inch size, it's really impressive that they were able to fit a 2060 in there at all. And just to show you, I'll put it on top of the blade, and you can really see just how chunky and big the blade is compared to that G14. If you were to get either of these machines and you were going to travel, I don't know, daily or even more than once or twice a week, you are going to feel this big, bad, chunky boy in your backpack or laptop bag or however you carry it. This thing is super duper light and is just, I mean, you could throw it in your backpack and not even notice it's there. The transportability, I guess, is a major win for this, but if you're looking at the screens, not only is the Razer Blade screen just overall bigger and more immersive, but it just, at least to me, to my eyes, is just a little sharper and a little better. One thing that this laptop has a known issue for is the motion blurring, screen tearing issue when you are pushing higher frame rates. The reasoning for that is this is one of the first times that a 14-inch 120 Hz display has been used on a laptop of this size. So when you really take that into consideration, it does get a hall pass, at least in my book. This machine here, Razer has been working on this since I think like 2018, 2017. Either way, everything seems super fine-tuned, nice and sharp. So back to the 2060s in each of these laptops. if you go and you download a bunch of software that tells you a bunch of things, you know, it took me forever to figure this out, you will find that both of these laptops have the same exact 2060 Max Q in each of them. The biggest differentiating factor between the two of them is the power that is supplied to them. Now, I couldn't for the life of me figure out how much power draw or how much power this puts into the GPU. If one of you fine young ladies or gentlemen knows how, please leave it in a comment down below. That way I can share that information with all of you. But I will say, running like the Heaven benchmark and whatnot, this was barely ahead for like at certain points, but they really were kind of neck and neck. But for some reason, you know, benchmarks don't really always reflect real world tests. If I plug this up to my 165 hertz 1440p monitor over there, say I'm playing Call of Duty Warzone, this computer on average gets 15, 20, sometimes even 25 FPS more than the G14. That could be for one of two reasons, maybe both, at least that I can think of. The 2060 Max Q in this machine could be getting more juice. You know, the charging bricks are different in the output power that they have, or the AMD Ryzen versus the Intel, their single core capabilities could be affecting how that GPU is used in gameplay. I am not entirely certain of the reason of why that's happening. All I can tell you is from my testing and from all the games I played on both of these, this one is just going to give you better results, not only on the screen because it's bigger, more immersive, but on an external GPU, on an external monitor. Now I would like to go over some pros and cons of why you would choose one of these machines over the other. First thing that I am going to go over is the price. This MSRP $17.99, however on sale at Best Buy for $13.50. This $14.99, however on sale for $11.99. So even at their sale prices, this one is $150 more. However, dollar per quality / FPS, or however you want to phrase it, this is just giving you more. You're getting that AMD Ryzen series chip, which is leagues ahead of Intel. You are getting that RTX 2060 Max Q, which, you know, again, is not as powerful as or as juiced up as this one is, but it is still a 2060, and you get the RTX and DLSS, and this also gives you a terabyte SSD, whereas this gives you 512 gigabyte. Next pro and con, or winner, that I would go for is gaming. So just overall gaming, which one's going to give you a better experience? I would have to go for the Razer Blade here. It's a 15.6 inch screen, which is much more immersive. This one, the screen is honestly really good. I know if you are like really sensitive to high frame rates, stuttering a bit, then you will notice what's going on here. But for 9 out of 10 people, this thing is great. I will say that if you are just going to be gaming on this without a headset or anything, the speakers on this bad boy are much better than the speakers on here, surprisingly. However, 9 times out of 10, again, I either use the speakers on my docking setup here or I use a headset. So just something to keep in mind. Also, when you use either of these on an external monitor, on average, this is going to be giving you 10% better quality in gaming than the G14 will. However, the G14 is no slouch. I'll tell you right now, any game you put on it, it will do just fine. You can game 1440p Call of Duty at like 60, 70, maybe even sometimes 80 FPS depending on what settings you have. So if you would like to use this as a desktop type machine, if you're a university student and you need something you can take on the go and bring back to your dorm or home or whatever, honestly, this is it. Which brings me to my next point, which is portability. This is a chunky boy. It's very big, but with that you get the 15.6 inch display, which is much more immersive. However, one thing that I would like to bring up with the portability factor is battery life. The AMD Ryzen 4000 series chips are just phenomenal with battery life. This thing will get you 9 to 10 hours of light use and writing essays, whatever you gotta do. You will not have to bring the charger around with you unless you want to game. What I mean by that is both of these laptops, if you are not plugged into power, you will not be able to play games at the full limits of the GPUs that are in here. This laptop can also charge from this USB Type-C port up to 65 watts. So if you have one USB-C charger to rule them all in your backpack and you just want to give this thing a nice little juice up while you're typing an essay at the library or something, this is going to be able to give you that function. The Razer Blade, the USB Type-C charging is reserved for the advanced model only. So right now, we have the price per what you're getting. We have one for the G14, the actual gaming experience, one for the Razer, the take it around with you ability factor, definitely the G14. Next is going to be upgradability. Now, if you have a desktop at home, I don't even know why you'd be looking at this, honestly. This is going to be more than enough to carry you around with you and give you all the power that you need on the go. It's also going to be doing it in a very awesome little form factor with a very strong CPU and great battery life. However, as soon as you bring it home, if you're getting this and you're just getting into PC gaming like I am, and you would like to upgrade it in the future, well, not only are you just limited to, your one slot of SSD, which you'll have to do some magic with putting Windows on a thumb drive and doing all that, and the RAM I think is capped to 24 gigs. The most important thing to me personally is the eGPU support. AMD's just at this moment do not support Thunderbolt 3 eGPUs. The Intel laptops do. At one point, if I want to get a 3060 whenever they become available, slap it in a Razer Chroma little eGPU case, having just all of that desktop experience in one factor that I can unplug and take on the go is just phenomenal. Also kind of gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling because rumors are already on the horizon for next year's G14s, which will have the AMD 5000 series chips and Nvidia RTX 3060 Max-Q, I'm assuming, and that is expected to have roughly 50% better results in FPS and gaming quality than this thing does. At that point, at least in my personal opinion, you really are looking at a desktop replacement. But the only way to get that is by either selling this or waiting till that comes out. Now, these things aren't like the new iPhones where you can just get one every year. If you would like to upgrade them, you cannot upgrade the GPUs on these unless you have an eGPU enclosure. You only buy the new GPUs as they come out. I know Thunderbolt 3 will be bottlenecked. However, I would personally like to just give it a shot and see if this laptop can last 4 or 5 years just by upgrading the GPU. If the Intel i7 10750H or 10750H, if that is going to be enough to keep up with the GPUs over time. So which of these laptops am I going to be keeping? For me, personally, I'm going to be going with the Razer Blade 15. The reasoning for that is not only does this have the aspect of upgradability in the future, And it also has a webcam. Forgot to mention that this does not have a webcam. I'm sure if you found this video you already know that, but you know, in these times with all the Zoom calls and whatnot, you'd have to buy a webcam with this, which is just not a good look because of, you know, the times we live in. I personally don't get, you know, out of the house as much as I used to for work, so this sits on my desk maybe 80% of the time. However, if I knew I was going to be traveling often, I would most certainly go for the G14 because of its light footprint. I will say it's gonna bring a tear to my eye to go return this to Best Buy, because I have grown quite the connection with just this build quality, this beautiful white slab. If they come out early next year with the G14 with the AMD Ryzen and Geforce, Nvidia Geforce 3060, I would just about lose it. It would make me maybe almost want to give this thing up. If the G14 with the 5000 series chips and the Nvidia 3000 series graphics card really do live up to the hype of the 50% performance boost, I don't really even think an eGPU would be necessary by any means. If you can get roughly 70 FPS at 1440p when putting out to an external monitor with this, a 50% boost to that, getting roughly 100, maybe even 120 off of a little machine of this size, that would be, most certainly that would be the future. And with the way that the 3000 series chips are looking, or sorry, the 3000 series GPUs, the huge difference in power between the desktop class GPUs, I am really interested to see what they do with the laptop GPUs. I hope you guys were able to learn something, if anything, about my time with these laptops. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to hear which of these you would like to get before the holiday sales are over. I will say getting almost $500 off of this is just too much to just shy away from. The perfect storm happened with this. I love this thing. If I could, I'd keep them both, but this is definitely going to be the one that stays with me for the foreseeable future. You guys enjoy the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Until then, I will catch you guys next time. Later.